Another US season of RuPaul's Drag Race is winding down, and I'm sure I'll do a video of my comprehensive thoughts on it at some point, but today I wanted to talk about what seems like a significant shift in the franchise. This season had a lot of noise surrounding it, for lack of a better term, much of which I actually cover in this video here, so the fact that all of this happened and we're still talking about the inclusion of the twins on season 15 really speaks to how important they were narratively and to the fan culture surrounding the show right now. Before you get pissed at me, I actually really like the twins. I find them to be harmless and pretty endearing, and of course, I could never hate a business-savvy bitch because I am one. Before we get into it though, I have two videos that you may have missed that need a little love. As YouTubers, it can be scary to experiment because sometimes it really pays off, and well, sometimes it doesn't, and being vulnerable about that is important, because doing the same type of content over and over can get boring for us, but the algorithm tends to work against us if we try anything new. If you want to support me, please go give these videos a like and a watch, and of course follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to my second channel here. Thanks so much. So this video is about Sugar and Spice, two beautiful baby drag queens from my hometown neck of the woods of Long Island, New York. Even if you don't watch Drag Race, you aren't tuned into the drag scene, chances are you've seen these two pop up on your TikTok For You page at some point between 2020 and now. Their social media appeal is obvious, they understand online trends, and they have the quick-cut, visually appealing transformation aspect down. They're these cute gay guys who go to life-sized Bratz dolls within a few seconds. It's basically eye candy for the brain. I personally did not think we would see these two on Drag Race for a long time. I mean, they're self-described baby queens who didn't really have any performing experience, and that's fine. And I didn't even think that the show would really be their thing. I mean, when I looked at their TikTok page, I never thought drag the way we normally think of drag. I thought more dress up. But as the prophecy goes, every summer, queens for season 15 started disappearing from their home bars, weekly hosting gigs, and off of social media, and people figured out pretty quickly that the twins had likely been cast. I remember there being negative reactions to this as far back as when they were first rumored, because, well, as much as everyone wants to pretend they're all about love and praise, it's easy to take cheap shots on Reddit where nobody can see it besides other haters such as myself. And at first glance, Sugar and Spice were the cheapest shot you could take. TikTok queens, can't perform, taking a spot from somebody else, yada yada yada. Even if you weren't the ones saying it online, people were out here thinking it. Let's not pretend that everyone didn't switch up on them when they found out that they're like wholesome, goofy cartoon characters who just want to have a good time, and therefore you looked kind of shitty bullying them. That definitely wasn't the perception of them before the promos came out. Here is my overall thesis statement on the twins. They are harmless, they made for good TV, but they weren't utilized to their fullest potential, and therefore their presence impeded the entire narrative of season 15. Of course, I'll explain what I mean in more detail, but first let's tranquilize the elephant in the room, the social media queen debate. Of course, I won't be able to perfectly hit all of the nuances of this conversation because, as you can guess, I am not a drag queen. However, here's the thing that fans of the show versus fans of other reality shows really need to understand. If you're a full-time or part-time drag performer, the exposure that Drag Race brings to your career is literally indispensable. You could be a successful Michelin star chef at a top restaurant and never touch a cooking reality show. And even if you did do one, it's not exactly going to make you a household name overnight. Same goes for designers on Project Runway or contestants on So You Think You Can Dance. For Drag Race, the exposure from the show gives many contestants the opportunity to do drag full-time, travel the world, and quite literally pay their bills. It's viewed as a golden ticket, and because the pay your dues mentality exists in every facet of American work culture, it is easy to understand the frustration seeing these two kids on TikTok who have never performed in a bar take not one, but two spots on the biggest platform in your line of work. On the other hand, the internet has fundamentally changed the way that we all exist. As someone who works both a traditional job and has a monetized online presence, I understand how difficult both of these things can be. YouTube is stressful, and I don't even do it full time. So does it take a lot of patience and ingenuity and intelligence to be able to market yourself and make a sustainable career online? Of course it does. But while that way of life was previously reserved for like makeup influencers and cooking channels, Sugar and Spice found a way to do it with drag, and to discount that reads to me like how people in the 90s discounted the internet before the dot-com boom. Evolution comes for all of us eventually, and for Drag Race to embrace it is really smart on their part, and I don't knock the twins for that at all. So ultimately what I'm saying is, like it or not, the social media queen debate is here to stay. It will likely be a storyline storyline on every season of Drag Race going forward until it just becomes the norm. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where Alaska got red for doing boy drag on a challenge only for it to become a requirement in a Rusical challenge. Things change, you know? So now that we settled this, and I'm sure if I gave a bad or misinformed take here, you will all let me know in the comments in a way that's of course calm and kind and respectful. Let's talk about how the twins specifically impacted the narrative of season 15. Here is my issue with the twins' presence on the show. I don't know how much of this would still have been true had the edits of each episode not been squished down for time, but for the first half of the season, pretty much until Spice was gone, the entire season was about them. They came into the workroom together, they were referenced as a point of interest in like every promo and trailer we saw, and for the first few episodes, all of the narrative action was centered around how they were doing. When it wasn't a confessional of the twins giving their opinion on something, it was somebody else giving a confessional about their opinion on the twins. If they were on the same team, it was like, wow, they're on the same team. And if they were on a different team, it was like, wow, I wonder how Sugar and Spice are gonna be on different teams. And there really wasn't that much to say about them because they weren't really making that much of an impact in the competition. It's not like they were getting favored over other people, they were pretty much safe the whole time. No one really had any drama with them either. Like, at first maybe some of the other queens seemed annoyed at them being there, but then there would be a confessional of them being like, you know what, the twins are fine actually, they're kind of funny. So then why are we focusing on them so much? Again, maybe this was a result of the episodes being cut down to a 60-minute format, but we didn't really get to learn about anybody else until around the time Spice left. And when they were in the spotlight, they were utilized in a weird way. Obviously, they did really poorly in Snatch Game, and it was as good of a time as any to make them lip sync against each other, but I don't think the audience or the producers got any of the reaction that they were going for with this initial choice. Because Sugar and Spice basically came as a team, they were allowed to be treated like a team, did their runways as a team, they, of course, did the lip sync as a team, not trying to save themselves, but to save each other. They literally thought they were going to get a double Shantae or a double Sashay. So there was no emotion for them, or us really, because I think production was hoping for a moment more like this. So the lip sync ends, Sugar gets eliminated, like arbitrarily, because I guess out of the two of them, Spice is the more visually interesting one to keep around, and then boom, Spice is now on her own. And we'll get to that in a second, but my favorite showcasing of the twins wasn't even in the actual episode. It was in Untucked, where they talked about their home life, not being accepted, their affinity for pretty things, and how they used each other to get through hard times. That's the most human thing about them that we got to know. And again, it was in Untucked, a moment that at the time you wouldn't have been able to see unless you sat through a completely different show first. I guess there's no way to change how that played out, but like, in that moment I felt weird because the twins had been something to point and laugh at up until their time in the bottom two, and now you're giving me real character intrigue only to just send one of them home. So here's my guess with what the plan was for whichever twin stayed in the competition, because it was very clear from the start that neither of them were going to win. I think the plan for Spice in this case was to get her as far into the competition as possible, maybe top 4 or top 5, to do a whole redemption arc where she could prove that she could stand on her own without her twin. Here's the issue though, I think they eliminated the wrong twin for this plan to actually be successful. From Sugar's elimination on, all Spice talked about was how she was the brains behind a lot of what they did back home, but Sugar actually executed a lot of the concepts and put them into action. Spice would design the outfits, Sugar would put them together. Maybe it was Spice trying to be humble and admirable, but it seemed like out of the two of them, Sugar was the leader of the two, and that makes sense given how well she performed in the acting challenge compared to the rest of her group. So Spice was not only a little lost without Sugar, which kind of led to her carefree attitude in regards to a lot of the remaining challenges, but she didn't possess a lot of the skills that could have feasibly gotten her to the end. I mean, she's very charismatic, but that can only take you so far when you're up against things like a design challenge or a lip sync challenge, and you don't regularly do either. This led to the perception that Spice was getting saved too much until she literally did get saved because Anitra didn't want to put her down like Bambi's mom, which I do respect, but that whole challenge could have been configured a different way to give Spice a send-off that at that point she probably would have been fine with. What we got instead was the following episode where poor Selena is losing her mind over the prospect of possibly going home, juxtaposed with like Spice being like, oh cool, Sugar and I did a TikTok to this song once. You see what I mean? Like, there was a way to make me root for both the twins, or one twin beyond just the charisma factor, but by the time we got to Spice's elimination, everyone was like, you know what? this is probably for the best. And judging by the marketing and all of the build-up for the twins being on Drag Race, I don't think that this was how it was supposed to go. And then there's the implications that this had for the rest of the cast. I mean, think about all of the conversations we have now around Mistress and Lux and Lucy, and I'm like, yeah, we didn't really get to know any of these people until like halfway through the season. And of course it helped that the episodes started getting longer shortly after Spice's elimination, but the whole season, while definitely better paced than seasons 13 and 14, felt a little off balance in that regard. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the twins. I wish the best for them, and their time on Drag Race will only help them excel career-wise, and maybe we'll see them back on All Stars because nowadays you don't actually have to be good at the show to be. If you want some quick thoughts ahead of season 15's finale, I am so happy that they're doing a top 3. If they do some fake out bullshit next week where it's a top 4, I will not be surprised, but I will throw a chair. I like how quickly the season moved along. It didn't feel like it dragged on forever with pointless nonsense. I think Sasha or Anitra will win, and I'm happy with either choice. I think Irene should come back for season 16, and everyone who talks about how Sasha Colby is going to replace RuPaul is being creepy and weird, and I don't get why we talk about RuPaul like she's some sort of mysterious crypt keeper who needs to pass her blood down to the youth to stay alive. She's literally in her early 60s, like, she's fine. Stop being weird. I don't understand people's creepy obsession with, like, Ru retiring or dying. Stop being a freak. Anyway, see you on the other side of the finale. If they ruin a pretty good season with another bullshit lip sync for the crown outcome, I will commit crimes in Minecraft. Good night!